quick introduction to Time Palette and what it is. And with Time Palette, we talk about quality time. We introduced the product to the market in 2018, and that was after a couple of years of development and testing to ensure the product was right for the health, the residential care, the emergency services, the justice sector, people who needed really reliable time systems. It's different by design, on purpose. I'll get into that in the next slide and what makes Time Palette master clocks different to every other master clock system out there. We've definitely solved old problems in a better way. And what I mean by that is that master clocks have been around for a very long time. We're not claiming to have invented the technology, but we think we're doing it much, much better. The product, as Mark said, is developed, it's owned, it's supported in Australia. We'll always be here, we'll always love you, we'll always love the product. And we think that that's really important with technology. You don't want your technology supported out of the United States when you're trying to care for people in Australia. We definitely recognise the needs of people with accessibility needs, and particularly those who are visually impaired. And I'll talk about that again in the next slide and what makes our product so different. And the last point there is we are talking about supporting aspirational technology. And I'll get Mark to very briefly jump in and talk about aspirational technology in terms of real-time location services and the other in technology products. Mark, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the reasons that we find this technology and the technology that's been developed by Time Palette really is that what it does for most of the facilities, that it actually enables more than just a clock solution or a master clock solution. And what I mean by that is, it enables things like the ability to now use the master clock technology to also look at doing real-time location tracking within facilities. And Donovan will talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. But certainly as we see the facilities, and we work obviously with a lot of aged care facilities and hospitals alike, and we're seeing that real-time location technology is really something that's coming, or is at the forefront of a lot of facilities' minds. So as we move forward with this presentation, you'll get a bit more of an understanding in relation to how it does integrate and what are the key benefits that you'll find with the Time Palette solution, as opposed to other vendors that may have similar technology as mentioned before, albeit not as sophisticated as Time Palettes. The other thing also that I wanted to mention just while we're on the call is if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the questions panel. I know we didn't mention that at the beginning. I apologise for that. We tend to find when we do these presentations, it's good to be able to ask questions and have them answered. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see the chat window. Feel free to ask any questions that you have as we progress through the presentation. So thanks, Donovan.
Thanks very much, Mark. And I'm absolutely certain that we've got people online today who are looking after residents and facilities who are prone to wandering. They're prone to wandering out of the facility, which can obviously be a disaster, but also wandering into each other's bedrooms, which can sometimes cause problems. So as we come to that bit of the technology and the RTLS systems that Mark's talked about, we'll talk about how Time Palette can help with those. But let's start simple. Time Palette is a master clock which does something which no other master clock on the market can do. You can choose a theme, you can choose the colored frame you want, you can choose the clock face, being an analog clock face, a digital clock face, or a combination of all of them. And you can choose the size, and you can see behind me here, if you can see my video, that there's just a small sample of the sizes. We can make the clock as big or as small as it needs to be. It makes it really suitable for a resident's bedroom if you wanted to put a smaller device in there to keep them really in touch. But it also makes it suitable for very, very large, communal areas, dining rooms and things like that, making sure that everybody can see what's happening, what day it is, what the time is. So Time Palette Master Clocks gives you great flexibility. Having said all that, you might be saying, hold on, Donovan, take a step back. We've already got clocks. Can you explain to me the difference between a clock and a master clock? Okay, master clocks are used for ensuring that everybody has got at a glance reference to the time, to the day, to the date. The fact of the matter is, a lot of people in society have stopped wearing watches. That's due to the prevalence mainly of these smartphones. But also we need to provide people with the ability to keep coordinated. It's important to understand if it's pickup time to go on the excursion, if it's lunchtime, if it's time for your hair appointment. All these things are really important to people in residential care. With the master clock system, we can keep that time synchronized. It means that we have a device which has a constant source of power, it has a constant source of time. It automatically updates. We never need to worry about managing that. We don't want some clocks running fast, we don't want some running slow, we don't want some of them not working at all. At daylight savings time, and some of us have just been through that change last weekend, we want to make sure that these clocks automatically update like that. We want to reduce maintenance on clocks, and we'll get into detail on that in a later slide. And it's a really, really simple step to modernize your facility. In terms of where we would put them, we're talking about anywhere where groups of people need to be synchronized. It could be quite simply at the reception desk of your residential care facility. It could be within a communal dining room. It could be residents' bedrooms. It could be in the kitchen. It's in hallways. It's in meeting rooms. It's in staff stations. Anywhere where you want to keep everybody on track. The time is always accurate, and it's always in a format which is really suitable for your residents and for your staff. In terms of keeping people on time, it may seem like something which is not that important, but if you've got a lot of people in one place, we need to get them all to the right spot for their meal. If we've got social gatherings organised, they need to know what the time is. If they've got appointments, perhaps their GP is coming into the facility to visit them, perhaps as a hair appointment. If they're relying on their granddaughter to come and visit them at a certain time on a Saturday afternoon, it's great for people to have that constant reference and not be needing to ask, what's the time? In terms of medication, we can ensure that people can put up their hand and say, I was meant to receive my medication at 12 p.m. It's 8 minutes past 12, just wanted to make sure it hasn't been forgotten. So it's a great reference point for both residents and for carers. And I think it helps staff focus on residents, and they're not constantly having to refer to their smartphones to see what the time is. It's a very simple thing, and it makes a big difference within facilities. We talk about the critical nature of time, and when we put a master clock into an operating theatre, perhaps a police station control room, the resuscitation cubicle in an emergency department, there's really critical to the second timing required within those areas. People need to be able to quickly reference the time. But I think that there's a critical therapeutic nature of having really, really great time devices within residential care. Dementia Australia, just one of the organisations who a lot of our audience will be familiar with, they recognise that having a really easy reference to the time, the date and the day, it's a really important part of daily life for residents who live with dementia illness. It reduces their isolation, and the clocks are absolutely beautiful. And if you do a bit of Googling around and look up master clocks, you'll see most of the products on the market, they're an LED screen. You'll get a choice of red, green, white, red, blue. If you're wondering, blue's the most expensive. Apparently there's more gold in blue LED. I don't know. We don't do that with Time Palette because we've designed our product from the ground up. It's a modern IP interface. It uses a commercial grade screen. We can make them whatever color, whatever look, whatever feel that you like. If your residents prefer an analog clock face, and some of them will, we can do that. If digital's better, we can do that. We know for those who live with dementia illness, being able to see the day spelt out in full is much better for them than just seeing it's the 3rd of the 2nd, 2019. And the last thing is we can choose stimulatory colors, so colors that really stimulate people. And we know that those with dementia illness, red in particular, for example, is a great colour, and it'll give them something to refer back to. And anybody who does a lot of care in this sector for those with dementia will understand that they're constantly interested. What's the time? What's the day? When's my family coming? This device can give you a really great reference to help keep people feeling as though they're connected and they're on track. As I said before, one of the great things with a master clock versus simply buying a clock and sticking it up on the wall is it greatly reduces maintenance, time, and costs. Clocks consume three things. They need a source of power, they need a time source, and they need maintenance time. Okay, master clocks are going to help you remove two of those consumables. You're never going to need to replace a battery again, and you're never going to need to have maintenance time to adjust a clock that's running fast or running slow. You're avoiding 2 times a year, if you're in the wrong state anyway, having to adjust for daylight savings time. Now, if you think about a facility, it's not hard to place 50 clocks throughout even a small facility, particularly if you put them into residence rooms as a way of keeping them connected. If you've got 50 clocks, we're talking about 250 batteries over a period of 5 years, or 750 times that your maintenance team don't need to climb up a ladder. Now, I don't know if you've, and if we've got maintenance teams on board, then they'll understand that you can't simply climb up a ladder in the workplace anymore. Anything that puts you above ground level, you're actually supposed to be licensed to perform high-risk work. Master clocks remove the need to climb and maintain these devices. It's a simple and important step, and make sure that your maintenance team can spend more time ensuring that the grass is beautifully cut, that any mops that, there's mopping up done if there's spills, that we're maintaining residence rooms, all those little things that help keep people really happy and feeling like they're living in a beautiful, well-maintained facility. So that's master clocks. Just to summarize, we're talking about a device where you can choose the frame, you can choose the size, you can choose the color scheme, you can choose the type of clock face. You can literally put them up and they are set and forget. They do their own thing for you 100% of the time. They're a great way to ensure that your resources, that your residents have always got access to the correct date, day, and time. Mark, have you had any questions come in there?
Yeah, we have. We've got quite a few. Can you talk a little bit more about the BLE side of? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So BLE is the emergent technology for enabling real-time location services. So real-time location services is where we are tracking people and assets. Those people could be team members who might potentially be wearing a device which they use for duress, or they could be residents where we want to put a bracelet on someone who's prone to wandering, so that we've got an idea where in the facility they are. So BLE, or Bluetooth Low Energy, is absolutely the emerging technology that we're using to do that. Formerly, it was done most prevalently with Wi-Fi, but it's a very expensive way to do it. You've got to put in a lot of Wi-Fi access points to achieve that. With the Time Palette Master Clock, we can use the clock as a BLE beacon, and it can do that piece of work for you. So the clock really becomes a part of the fabric of the building. It's a modern IP interface. It enables that kind of technology. So rather than having to put in 2 separate systems, you can work it all into your master clock and use it as a host.
Okay. Sorry, there's someone's just typing a follow-up question to that.
Sure.
So what are the, I'll just reword it. What are the application usages for BLE or location tracking? So how does it work with your clocks? Is it integrate?
Yeah.
The question is, please, can you explain a little bit more about how master clocks and BLE work? Like, what's the integration really?
Sure. So there's a couple of simple ways we can do it. The first thing that we can do is if we have what I would call a standalone third-party system, which simply has a BLE chip, generally a USB chip that needs to be powered. Our devices have all got onboard USB ports. You can simply plug that device in, we will power up that device for you and enable that device to do its thing. And quite often the barrier between implementing that technology and not doing it is simply figuring out how to get it powered and working in the room. So that's the first way we can do it. The second way we can do it is we can use the onboard Bluetooth chip within our devices, and they've all got one, and we can use that as the beacon and integrate that in with another RTLS system. Why that's important is because our clocks are integrated with the facility network, we're already on the network, and we can provide a gateway through to the servers and to the services that run these systems. So it's all about providing a gateway to those systems.
Great. Another one was, what's the procedure for adding or mounting the clocks?
Sure. Okay. Look, so we attach them to the wall. We recommend it with a slimline bracket. In fact, we include one with each device, and they protrude from the wall no more than 40 millimeters. It does depend on the size of the clock, of course. So they're not particularly heavy. We're talking about under 1 kilogram. And so it's simply a case of attaching it to the wall appropriately, and it simply slides on to the bracket, and then it needs to be integrated. There's a couple of ways to integrate it into the facility. You can either connect it to a traditional AC power supply, so you simply plug it in if you choose to do that. But they also work with what's called PoE, or Power over Ethernet. So for those of you who are not IT people on the call, Power over Ethernet is where we power a device from our network switches within the communications cupboard where all the dust accumulates. So PoE allows us to power these devices with one simple cable. We simply put them up, we plug them in, and we work with an IT team to integrate them to the correct time source. We can get that time source externally, or most IT teams will have an internal time source that we can get that information from. So that's easy enough to do, and part of the installation process for them is working with our integrators and IT teams to make sure that works really smoothly.
Okay, so great, excellent. So, another question is, the clocks behind you are very dark in color. Can you change the face of the color of the clocks?
Yeah, absolutely. They're completely flexible. Unfortunately, the magic of television is something which is great for being able to stand next to these devices and show them to you. But our streaming video, I can do a very white clock face. So you can do, for example, a white clock face with black time digits on it. However, all you would get is a big white blur coming over the video. So I can't show that to you today. It doesn't look great, but in person it looks fantastic. So your background can be any color you want in the color spectrum. So this one's yellow, this one's orange, this one's black. You could do white as well. So it's just a case of picking the best colors for your facility and for the people who are looking at the device.
And that was actually the next question, was it can the color be customized to our corporate colors? So that's good answer to that one.
Yeah.
To answer that one.
Yeah, we have a foreground and a background color, and we use an RGB color palette. So if the color can be dreamed up, then we can make your devices that color.
Great. Next one is, our facility has a big focus on wood. Can the frames be made out of wood? Yeah,
absolutely. So we initially looked at having the devices built with a wooden frame, but it put the price up a lot. So we've developed a beautiful wooden overlay that we can put over the top of them, and that ensures that the devices can be made to feel a little bit less IT-like and a little bit more homely. So that's not a problem if we want to do that. So we're looking at either a black or a white, which they come out of the box that way. Otherwise, we put a frame around them that makes them look like a picture, and they look really special.
Okay, great. There's no other questions. Oh, actually, there's a funny question. What's the time?
well, Mark.
Sorry, I appreciated that one, Jeff. That was quite a good question. Thank you.
depending on what state you're in today, it may be that they're an hour or so out. But I'd like to assure you that in the great state of Victoria, it's 22 minutes past 11.
The other thing that you mentioned earlier on was, and I'm just going to ask you a question if you don't mind, was in and around dementia patients. And has there been studies around or do you know of anything around the value for dementia patients to be able to physically read the time? You know, I can see it's Tuesday, it's the 15th of the 10th, 2019, it's 11:23:34 a.m. You know, what's the value to a dementia patient to be able to read the time like that, as opposed to be able to look at a clock?
Huge value. So we know that for those with dementia illness, particularly as their illness progresses, they become less and less sure of themselves, and those online who are carers will understand that, and they're going to be to some degree on repeat with some of the information they want to know, and so it's really important to be able to reference them to something like the time of the day, particularly for somebody where time and understanding the day, the date, the year is slipping away for them. And if you were to, for example, so a lot of facilities get audited by Dementia Australia, and Dementia Australia actively look for clocks and information which stimulates residents and helps reduce that feeling of isolation, and it gives them a picture of where they're at, what the time is. So that's not something which you need to solely believe us on. If you chat to Dementia Australia, they'll be able to come to your facility and do an audit and tell you exactly the sorts of things that help. And I guarantee you that having clocks that spell out the day and the month and things like that, they do make a big difference. Not only for dementia patients or residents, but for all of them. And indeed, our last slide there has our lovely lady doing the knitting, and it's 9:50 a.m. on a Sunday, and our slide indicates that 10 a.m. is when visiting hours start, and if we can give people with dementia illness that thing to focus on, then it makes a big difference to their day. It's a simple thing.
Yeah, great. The other thing also that I recently heard was within the aged care facilities, there is a requirement for the facilities as part of the renewal of their license structure to actually provided within that report what is the innovation that those facilities are bringing to the market or bringing to their facilities. And I think this is certainly one thing that I know with a number of the aged care facilities that I've personally been talking to and had involvement with. This is one of the things that they're putting forward as how they're helping certainly patients with dementia, but not only patients with dementia, as you mentioned before. The ability to actually see, okay, I know I've got to take my medication at 25 or 11:30. I need to start heading back to my room to go and take that. So they're the sort of things, the other things that I think are very beneficial. And certainly from my perspective, I mean, when we first started working with you, as we had some sample stock sent up to our office, and we have a very large one sitting in our meeting room. And what I can tell you is that in a meeting room environment, when you've got a meeting that's going to go on for 25 minutes or 35 minutes or an hour, literally, you're not clock watching, but it's a lot nicer to look up at the wall than to look down at your watch and go, how long is this meeting got left? So it is in a meeting type environment, it actually keeps people more active in the meeting than not. So that's the other thing I've seen.
Common courtesy, isn't it? And look, having a clock on the wall does assist teams if they're having meetings where everyone's looking at their devices, and that can be frustrating. And just back to your first point, Mark, I mean, the elephant in the room is obviously there's a Royal Commission underway, and we're getting great engagement from facilities who are looking to get on the front foot, and they've been listening to the likes of Dementia Australia. They've heard the message that they need to start updating this technology. They're already doing it, and that's for good reason. And you are going to see the need to refresh and update and utilize technology. I'm certain you're going to see recommendations come out of that Royal Commission around this topic.
And I think you're right. And I think that the big thing is to be on top of it. Be in the driver's seat rather than on the receiving end. I think for most of the facilities, and there is we've got quite a lot of facilities on today, which is great because looking at this innovation is certainly going to help. And obviously, as you mentioned before, when we start talking about things like, using the time palette clocks as a beacon where you can actually provide location services in the background, and those that additional value that it provides is certainly, we can certainly see that being beneficial moving forward when it comes to, what are these facilities doing as far as innovation is concerned. And you're dead right. I mean, rather than actually having to go and put in additional hardware where you can use the clock that does that has that beacon functionality, that's a great solution. So look, we don't have any more questions right now. Thank you to everybody who's on the call and who asked the questions. As I said, it's been really good for us to have the ability to talk to you. If you do want to organise to have a one-on-one session, please let us know. We have a number of partners that are also on the call today that we'll be reaching out to, and certainly reach out to your local partner, your local reseller partner, or your technology provider. They will be able to, in most cases, help you out with, with pricing and so forth for the master clocks. If not, come directly back to us and we can make a recommendation, to you for one of those partners.